What we do here is go back.
How's it going, everyone, and welcome to episode 35 of the Lost Media Podcast. Today we're talking about Saban Moon, not Sailor Moon. This was a pilot that was never released or never aired anywhere, that was made in secret back in 1993 or 1994, depending on which source you look at. It's an Americanized version of the Japanese anime Sailor Moon, the very popular anime from the early 90s. Just to start this, I am not an anime fan. I don't know an awful lot about anime. I don't know much about Sailor Moon either. I'm kind of looking at this from the perspective of it being a really obscure and unique piece of lost media, and just like how far things went in terms of the westernization and Americanization, if that's a word, of international things. It was just a weird era of America trying to do their own American version of every single international show, especially stuff from Japan. Sometimes they did an American version of Japanese shows, Japanese anime, very rarely Japanese anime, and it worked out okay, but this was one of those examples of a test pilot and just everyone going, oh, that is really bad. Mainly it was the cost that was the reason why this didn't go forth. It cost a fortune. For what it was just stupid. Like, the easier option was to just dub a bunch of episodes of Sailor Moon that were already made in Japan, and that would still make just as much money as, spending a bunch of money on an Americanized version. This has interested me for many years, this piece of lost media. You're probably wondering, why does this interest you? You're not a fan of anime, you're not a fan of Sailor Moon, This shouldn't be a piece of lost media that you're interested in. I'm interested in this because it's a weird oddity because of how popular Sailor Moon was over in Japan. And obviously there are anime fans all over the world that love this show and still do watch this show. But it fascinates me that they went for a live action animation morph in the US, for a US version. And all I saw of this for many years, because only last year did it become found. Yes, I'm doing found lost media again. I'm sorry, but it's an interesting story. Only just found. What fascinated me was there was just that shitty recording filmed seemingly in a cinema, like a private cinema. And it was a bunch of people just laughing at what they were watching. They were watching the music video segment of the pilot. And it was previously believed that it was just that 2-minute music video that was made as a sort of promotional material for people to sign on board for the American Sailor Moon, the Americanized Saban Moon. I'm not sure if it was actually called Saban. I don't think it was called Saban Moon. I think it was just Sailor Moon, but the US version. It wasn't called Sailor Moon US. It was just Sailor Moon with American voices and American live action mixed with animation. But it was coined Saban Moon because I think it was made by Saban, that group that we all remember that made kid shows when we were little. And also The Incredible World of Dick. The Incredible World of Dick animation. There's no way of saying that without it being a bit of a meme. And they were involved in the production of this. And one of the most fascinating aspects of it is obviously, as I was saying, all we've had for years was that shitty recording in a cinema where people are just like, there's a bunch of nerds in there. And they're all kind of just like, thank you for not doing that. And they're all just laughing. I just looked at it and thought, what the hell? Like, they really went for this. Like, they've done a lot of cringy Americanized versions of shows that just shouldn't have been Americanized from overseas. And this was one of the most outlandish I ever saw. Because as much as I obviously know very little about anime and very little about Sailor Moon, the TV show, I still see it as they really did this. Like, I still really look back at that. And especially when I was first, notified at the existence of this by Rebel Taxi's video talking about it, where he showed the clips of the very poor quality cinema clips, because that's obviously all there was available, as I said. It was just very eye-opening for me, though, the lengths they went to try and Americanize certain things, Westernize, I guess you could say, these shows that are clearly not meant to be American. They're clearly just meant to be Japan and then maybe dubbed for American audiences, and that's obviously what they went with. So the story is that it was in a storage locker, the 2-minute promotional material, and it was taken out of the storage locker and shown to the public. Or the recording of the promotional material from the cinema. I'm a bit iffy with this because there's a lot of conjecture around it, and I'm not the most knowledgeable about how this was actually found. I'm knowledgeable about how the 17-minute pilot or 10-minute pilot that's on YouTube at the moment was found. But in the early days, back in 2012, when this was first discovered, apparently it was just sitting in a storage locker. It is worth noting that the cinema recorded one was uploaded to YouTube in 2010. So again, there's a lot of conjecture and it's really iffy, the timeline of this. But one of the most fascinating aspects for me is how they decided to mix live action with animation, which is very strange. We've seen that in TV shows, seen that done successfully a fair few times. And you can kind of tell from watching this little pilot episode that this thing, even that alone, would have cost a bit. Like, it's clearly not a good idea cost-wise. And, I was watching it before, and it is terrible, in my opinion. It is so cringe. It's obviously for kids, but, like, I was just watching thinking this is, compared to obviously what this show would have been for so many of its fans and how much beloved it was for a lot of people watching it. I mean, back in the early 90s when it was at the height of its popularity, this would have been canned by everyone. And it also would have cost way too much. So you just get every negative possible from doing this. So very good that there was just the pilot. But for many years, everyone's like, where is this pilot? It would really want it to be found, especially by Sailor Moon fans. It goes from what could have been a complete flop and remembered as something everyone hated to being remembered as lost media and something people really, really wanted to see. And that's why it just sort of caught my attention and piqued my interest. It's a very rare sort of topic I'd cover here on the Lost Media podcast. Something to do with a show that I am so unfamiliar with. I just have zero knowledge about it. But obviously, the fact that this was found is what makes it way more fascinating for me. If this wasn't discovered late last year, I don't think I'd be doing this podcast. But the fact that a YouTuber who reviews anime and made a documentary about the Western world of Sailor Moon contacted the Library of Congress, and they were like, look, here you go, you can have this and you can upload it to YouTube without a watermark. That's really cool. And August 2022 was when we finally got to see this. And my God, it's a piece of television history. I'm amazed that the Library of Congress had this. Like, they've actually chosen this to be in the Library of Congress. Like, obviously, it's a pretty significant piece of television history, or an attempt at something that just should never have been attempted. For them to put it in their collections, like, it's unreal, in my opinion. Obviously, it's one of those can you believe this happened type shows, and that's why it's in there. And yeah, it's, I'm guessing for people who are massive fans of this, they just look at this and go, no fucking way. They just look at it and go, this is unreal. How is this a thing? One episode, though, it wasn't a thing. And that's what makes it so unique, in my opinion, and sought after for so many years. I was actually looking for this, believe it or not. Well, I was hanging out to see if it would get found for a long time. Because that kind of added to as I said, the cinema recording added to the mystery of it and mystified it a bit. Seeing the live action, like, cringy sort of close-ups of those girls and, like, smiling and saying things to the camera, and you're just watching it and going, oh, this is so shit. This is so bad. Despite me not knowing, I guess, the original show or how good that was, or having zero interest in that, I was still just like, oh, what were they going for here when I was watching that old shitty recorded off of cinema footage. I think it brings a better perspective to this, the fact that I'm not an anime fan and I'm not a fan of this show and I know very little about it, because I'm able to kind of give the perspective that hasn't been given on YouTube so far when it comes to this, which is, this is such a unique and bizarre piece of television history, a bizarre attempt at something that was going to be a thing. And that's why I thought, what a great thing to talk about from my perspective on the Lost Media podcast. Because as I've said, very bizarre topic for me to look at, but I really wanted to look at it because I've been looking out for this for quite a while. Just because it's one of those, trying to stop myself from repeating myself. It's like an Austin Powers thing. I don't know. It's a weird case of why did they decide to try this. Like most shows that are animes or Japanese cartoons, they'll just dub it into English. They won't ever consider making their own version of it. Like what? Why would you do that? Like it's silly. It already exists. It's already successful as it is. And if it's a really good production, really good show that heaps of people love, why would you bother to try and, catch lightning in a bottle twice when it's likely going to be very, very bad? And that's why I was just like, looked at this and thought, they've attempted something that is the unwinnable, pretty much. And you look at it and you go, they've actually tried to morph live action and this not great. For the time, it might have been okay, but interesting looking animation style. And the live action characters in the anime are obviously meant to be one and the same, and that's their adventures in outer space being animated, and they go back to Earth. I honestly, I was dumbfounded at how bad this was watching it. I was dumbfounded that this is something that was obviously, as I've said, attempted, but why they didn't, look, it feels like it was made from a place of, we don't know like the people who made it don't know anything about the Japanese show. And they're like, maybe we can profit and make the American version because it was so successful in Japan and should be so successful in America, when in reality, anyone who watches this show in America is watching Japanese subtitles, and they're weeaboos. No, I'm not going to do that. Weeaboos go to Japan and be like, where are the subtitles? God, that's enough of that for today. I really do. I respect the hunt for this show, and I respect the fact that there was a lot of work put into finding it, and then it was eventually found. I just realized my this thing is in the shot the entire episode, and I try and not have a hanging cord in the shot. I apologize, guys. It is a podcast, so odds on it's on YouTube. Odds on you've just seen the whole episode. That's all there really is to it. I recommend watching it, just especially if you're a fan of Sailor Moon and you've found this podcast somehow and you recommend it. I do recommend watching it because it will blow your mind in terms of how bad it is. But nah, it's all right. It just happens. I mean, they obviously back in 1994 they were like, yeah, we're not doing this. Costs too much. Let's just go for an American dub of the original anime, and that's what happened. But a very, very interesting piece of lost media. And I recommend you watch the video that I'm going to put in the description, and it's by the person, I can't remember the name of the channel, which is really bad. It's got like 67,000 subscribers. Maybe I only remember names of channels that are big. Ridiculous. And they've made a documentary, The Western World of Sailor Moon. So if you're a fan and you want to see that, that's worth watching, especially the portion where they talk about this, Saban Moon. Yeah, weird. All I can say about this is weird, the fact that it was made, and interesting, the fact that it was lost for so long. And the Library of Congress was willing to share this, which is surprising from my perspective. Very surprising. Yeah, such a bizarre thing. I was trying to remember, actually, there was more details about this from my research from 2016, uncovering it. I think someone uncovered the full pilot, but wasn't able to release it. They said, there's copyright issues, I can't release it. You can correct me in the comments if you know considerably more about this, the search for it, if that's accurate or not. I'm pretty sure, though, that it was... I'm not pretty sure. I'm not sure at all that it was just straight to 2022 and then it was uploaded. But it was a process trying to get this uploaded in its original format and then released, because hidden within the walls of companies for many years, this pilot. Yeah, very strange. Belongs in the 90s. Very weird. I reckon that's a good point to end this podcast, because I'm rambling on a bit there. I've got another Where Are They Now? Lost Media coming out today. And then tomorrow is the last 2 Lost Media podcasts in this block of 38 podcasts in 19 days to start this YouTube channel. It has been a very cool start to this YouTube channel for me. I've really enjoyed it. The support's been unreal, and I really appreciate it, guys. It's fantastic. But I will be back within maybe about a week or so. I'm thinking of doing a May the 4th upload, and we all know what May the 4th means. So we'll see how we go with that. But please subscribe, please comment, and press the like button under the video there. It's there. This really does need to end. Goodbye.